First time I met him, he was, I think, Chief Executive of the Victorian Property Council of Australia group. And I remember meeting him once or twice at cocktail functions with them, and I was just impressed with his level of professionalism, how articulate he was, presented well, could tell a good joke, you know. So I was particularly pleased when I heard he'd made the decision to move across to the Master Builders Association.
When the board at the time or interviewed different people who had applied for the job, Brian, the whole of the board agreed that Brian should be the person who was given the job, and he stood out well and truly in front of the others, apart from the fact he was much younger than the others, enthusiastic, knew the industry and what it was about.
My first impressions were that Brian moving from the Property Council, or BOMA as it was called back then, was a huge loss for them and a great gain for the MBA. So I think we came out winners in that transition.
We weren't looking for a CEO that was going to sit in the ivory tower and direct the traffic. We wanted somebody that would roll up his sleeves and get his hands dirty, and that's exactly what Brian did.
And he really has, you know, that's the biggest thing, is really his passion, and that passion hasn't wavered. You know, after all these years being with the association, that's what gets him up out of bed.
I think one of his main achievements was keeping the media at bay and dealing with the media without us presidents getting involved, where we could get repercussions, particularly from on our companies, particularly from union problems. And Brian handled that very well and kept us presidents out of the limelight, which I believe was a very important factor.
Well, I think there's no doubt that when Brian's working, he's working, and he's going at top speed all the time. He's absolutely 100% committed, and you know, it's a 24/7 thing. When he gets the opportunity to play, he does that as he works, and he can play. He has fine taste in red wine. He has an enormous sense of humour that just gets coloured more and more as time goes on with the consumption of that red stuff. But he does play hard, and he's a lot of fun to be around. When he's in a good mood, of course, he's right on. He's very good company.
Always, look, during my term, always provided very wise counsel. I was somewhat reluctant to step up as president, and could not have done it without Brian. Brian was a very, very good backboard for me, and as I say, I just couldn't have done it without Brian. And by the time the 2 years were over, I had a lot more confidence, and that's all thanks to Brian and seeing the way he worked. And it was a very, very enjoyable 2 years, and thanks very much, Brian. Thank you.
I was thinking about some of the funny times with Brian, and for me it's on the golf course really, and what I chuckle about when I play golf with Brian is that he's a man with a great vocabulary, and is wonderfully articulate, and I think most of us are very envious of that point. But when you play golf, after a few holes you notice that his vocabulary narrows somewhat and roughens up a touch. So that always makes me chuckle. Nothing to do with his quality of golf, much.
He loves his golf. I've played several games of golf with Brian, and we do socialise. We're both members of a group of 15 or 16 guys that meet for lunch once a month on a Friday. That group is called the Poets, and we have a good time.
You know, I've always thought Brian was a consummate politician in general ways. He handles himself all the time. He's as I say before, never flustered, never too. Always got something to say. Always got the right words to put in place for it.
I always thought, and I said it to Brian, he missed his calling insofar as he probably would have been a fantastic politician himself.
Yeah, he probably does enjoy the limelight to some degree, but he's very articulate, he thinks quickly, and he has the answers. He studied the subject and he handled it, in my opinion, very well.
My presidency had the collapse of HIH insurance, which meant that all our members had no insurance whatsoever. That was a real crisis, and Brian spun into action, and he worked day and night. Basically for 6 months, Brian was there.
Look, Wendy's been fantastic for Brian. She's the rock behind the man. She indulges him when he probably shouldn't be indulged at times. He spent a lot of time away from home, and this move will probably allow him more time to spend with Wendy. No, I think she's excited about it. She's missed out on a lot of his time over the years.
Without a doubt, the most memorable thing that happened while I was president was the 36-hour week campaign in 2000, and that was a very testing time for both of us.
Look, I think there's a fair amount of respect from the senior guys in the union movement. I mean, as a respect in terms of a strong adversary. So there'll be that respect, but they won't be sorry to see him go. Right? That said, the Master Builders Association has a lot of good people in that area, and I'm sure we won't be found wanting.
He's contributed so much, and he's held in the highest of esteems from all his peers, and he has certainly been groundbreaking in lots of areas in development and trying to get together the movement as a little bit more harmonious and working together. It's been very, very difficult. We're a federation, each state does what they like, but with Brian he has certainly impacted on all people and for the betterment of each state, not to mention Victoria.
Now, within 6 months of Brian being there, I thought he was the right person for the position. And if I was on the board now, I would have been putting a package to him for the next 5 years that would have been too good to refuse.
And as a general statement, he's a bloody good bloke.